What if I told you that every complaint you make is slowly rewiring your brain to find more things wrong with your life? What if the very act of expressing dissatisfaction is creating a mental prison that becomes harder to escape with each passing day? This isn't about staying positive or toxic optimism. This is about something far more sinister happening in your mind every time you voice a complaint. Right now, as you listen to this, your brain is running a complex algorithm. It's scanning your environment, your relationships, your circumstances, looking for patterns. And here's the terrifying part. Whatever you focus on, your brain will find more of. Complain about traffic and suddenly you notice every red light. Complain about your job and every small annoyance becomes magnified. Complain about people and you start seeing flaws everywhere you look. But this goes deeper than simple awareness. Each complaint you make is literally carving neural pathways in your brain. Think of your mind like a mountain path. The first time you walk it, you have to push through bushes and rocks. But walk that same path every day, and eventually, it becomes a clear, well-worn trail. That's exactly what happens when you complain. You're creating mental highways that lead straight to dissatisfaction. Scientists call this the negativity bias, but it's more accurate to call it the complaint amplification system. Your brain doesn't just notice negative things more readily, it actively searches for them once you've established the pattern. It's like programming a search engine to only show you problems. The more you use it, the better it gets at finding exactly what you're looking for, even when it's destroying your peace of mind. Here's where it gets really disturbing. There are people walking through the exact same circumstances as you, facing the same challenges, dealing with the same frustrations, but they're experiencing a completely different reality. They're not superhuman. They're not naive. They've simply never trained their brains to be complaint-seeking machines. While you're drowning in a sea of problems, they're navigating the same waters with ease. The most insidious part isn't even what complaining does to your perception of the world. It's what it does to your identity. Every complaint is a small declaration of powerlessness. Every time you voice dissatisfaction, you're reinforcing the belief that you're a victim of your circumstances rather than the architect of your experience. You're literally programming yourself to be helpless, but it doesn't stop with you. Complaining is contagious. When you complain to others, you're not just venting, you're recruiting them into your negative reality. You're asking them to validate your perception that the world is full of problems. And here's the twisted part. They often do. Not because they want to help, but because misery genuinely loves company. It feels safer to agree that everything is terrible than to challenge someone's worldview. Think about your last conversation with someone who complains constantly. How did you feel afterward? Drained? Exhausted? That's not coincidence. Chronic complainers don't just see problems everywhere, they create them. They generate negative energy that spreads to everyone around them. They become black holes of positivity, sucking the life out of every interaction. Now, here's what nobody talks about. There are two types of responses to problems. The first type identifies a problem and immediately starts thinking about solutions, taking action, or accepting what cannot be changed. The second type identifies a problem and talks about it endlessly without ever moving toward resolution. Guess which one leads to a better life? But here's the part that should give you hope and terrify you in equal measure. Just as complaining rewires your brain for negativity, you can rewire it for something else entirely. The same neuroplasticity that trapped you in a cycle of dissatisfaction can free you from it. But it requires something most people aren't willing to give: conscious, deliberate effort to change a deeply ingrained habit. The first step isn't to stop complaining cold turkey. That's like trying to stop a river with your bare hands. Instead, you need to become aware of when you're about to complain. Create a gap between the trigger and your response. Notice the feeling that precedes a complaint. Usually it's frustration, disappointment, or fear. Instead of immediately voicing it, pause and ask yourself, what would focusing on this accomplish? Is there action I can take, or am I just reinforcing a pattern that makes me miserable? This awareness practice is like developing a mental immune system. The more you catch yourself before complaining, the stronger your resistance becomes. You start to realize that most complaints are automatic reactions, not conscious choices. They're mental reflexes that serve no real purpose beyond making you feel temporarily justified in your dissatisfaction. Something remarkable happens when you stop being a source of complaints. People start responding to you differently. They stop walking on eggshells around you. They stop dreading conversations with you. More importantly, you stop attracting situations and people who thrive on negativity. Your reality literally shifts because you're no longer broadcasting a signal that says, "Send me problems to complain about." But let's be brutally honest about what this journey looks like. When you first stop complaining, you'll feel like you're losing a part of your identity. Complaining often serves as a form of connection with others. It's how many people bond, commiserate, and feel understood. When you remove this crutch, you might feel isolated or like you're not being authentic. This discomfort is actually a sign that the process is working. You're breaking free from a social prison you didn't even realize you were in. The strangest thing about breaking the complaint habit is that you don't replace it with forced positivity. You don't become someone who pretends everything is wonderful all the time. Instead, you develop what could be called productive discernment. You still notice problems, but instead of dwelling on them or broadcasting them to the world, you either take action to address them or accept them as part of life's natural texture. This shift changes everything about how you move through the world. Traffic jams become opportunities for reflection or learning. Difficult people become puzzles to understand rather than sources of frustration. Work challenges become chances to grow rather than evidence that life is unfair. You don't become naive or passive. You become strategically focused on what actually serves your well-being and goals. Perhaps the most profound change is how this affects your relationships. When you stop complaining, you stop training the people around you to see you as someone who needs to be handled with care or avoided when they have good news. You become someone people want to share their victories with because they know you won't immediately point out what could go wrong. You become a source of strength rather than a drain on energy. The journey from chronic complainer to someone who handles life's challenges gracefully isn't about perfection. You'll still have moments of frustration. You'll still encounter genuinely difficult situations that warrant discussion and problem solving. The difference is that you'll approach these moments with intentionality rather than reactivity. You'll choose your battles and your words more carefully. What emerges is something that goes beyond happiness or positivity. It's a form of mental sovereignty. You realize that no external circumstance has the power to force you into a state of chronic dissatisfaction unless you grant it that power through your focus and words. This doesn't mean you become emotionally numb or unrealistically optimistic. It means you become the conscious author of your internal experience, rather than a victim of whatever happens to catch your attention. The most liberating realization is that most of what you used to complain about was never actually about the external situation. It was about your relationship to uncertainty, your fear of not being in control, your need to feel heard and validated. When you address these deeper needs directly, the compulsion to complain begins to dissolve naturally. You find better ways to connect with others and better ways to process your own emotions. This transformation doesn't happen overnight, and it's not about suppressing authentic feelings or concerns. It's about developing the wisdom to distinguish between productive expression and destructive repetition. It's about learning to communicate your needs without broadcasting your helplessness. It's about becoming someone who contributes to solutions rather than amplifying problems. In the end, the question isn't whether you'll face challenges, disappointments, or frustrations. You will. The question is whether you'll use these experiences to strengthen your resilience and deepen your understanding, or whether you'll use them to build an ever-growing catalog of evidence that life is fundamentally unfair. One path leads to wisdom and peace. The other leads to chronic dissatisfaction and the slow erosion of your capacity for joy. The choice is yours, and it's being made fresh in every moment. Every time you feel the urge to complain, you have the opportunity to choose a different response. Every time you catch yourself focusing on what's wrong, you can redirect your attention to what's possible. This isn't about denial or false optimism. This is about reclaiming your power to shape your own experience of being alive. So here's the question that could change everything. What if your brain has been lying to you? What if all those complaints you thought were helping you process life were actually programming you for misery? What if the very thing you believed was protecting you from disappointment was guaranteeing it? The answer might be more unsettling than you're ready to face, but it might also be the key to a freedom you never knew was possible.